Volkswagen sold 11 million people a car that performed one way in the lab and a completely different way on every road they ever drove it. On the test bench, those cars met every clean air standard. On the road, they emitted nitrogen oxides at up to 40 times the legal limit. The software that did this was not an accident. It was written deliberately, tested internally, and deployed across a decade and 11 million vehicles. The supplier who provided the engine control software warned VW in writing in 2007 that using it on public roads would be illegal. VW proceeded anyway for 8 more years. This is the story of exactly how the dissection worked: the engineering, the marketing, the regulatory evasion, the discovery, and what happened to the people responsible. This is not a story about a rogue engineer. Internal documents show awareness at multiple levels of VW management for years before the EPA's 2015 notice of violation. To understand what Volkswagen did, you need to understand the problem they were solving. Diesel engines are efficient and produce less carbon dioxide than comparable petrol engines. Diesel's problem is nitrogen oxides, or NOx. When diesel combusts at high temperature, it produces NOx compounds that contribute to smog, ozone, and respiratory disease. In the mid-2000s, VW made a strategic bet: crack the NOx problem and bring clean diesel to the US market, which had largely abandoned diesel for passenger cars. The challenge: reducing NOx requires slowing combustion, which reduces the fuel efficiency that makes diesel attractive. Clean or powerful? Achieving both was the engineering problem. VW's publicly stated answer was their TDI engine combined with advanced exhaust treatment. They marketed it as a genuine breakthrough and a clean alternative to hybrids. Their actual answer was software. The engine control unit, the ECU, was programmed with 2 distinct modes, one for the test bench, one for the road. Test mode activated when the ECU detected a bench: wheels spinning without vehicle movement, no steering input, fixed speed patterns matching standard regulatory test cycles. In test mode, the engine ran with maximum exhaust gas recirculation and full catalytic reduction. Emissions were low, compliant. The car passed every regulatory test in every market. Road mode was everything else. On actual roads, the ECU switched to a performance calibration. Exhaust gas recirculation reduced, catalytic reduction partially bypassed. On the road, these cars emitted NOx at 10 to 40 times the US legal limit, every drive, every driver, for a decade. This software has a regulatory name: a defeat device. Under US and European law, any system that reduces emissions effectiveness in real-world driving is illegal. VW knew this. Bosch, which supplied the ECU software, sent Volkswagen a written warning in 2007, stating explicitly that deploying this calibration on public roads would violate emissions regulations. Internal VW documents from 2011 show employees flagged the defeat device as a regulatory risk. Those concerns were not escalated. The software remained in production vehicles. While the dissection ran, VW spent hundreds of millions marketing TDI diesel as a clean alternative to hybrids. Their tagline: "Diesel is no longer a dirty word." The organization that caught Volkswagen was not the EPA. It was a small non-profit called the International Council on Clean Transportation, the ICCT. In 2013, the ICCT commissioned real-world emissions testing of diesel vehicles sold in the US, partly to show that European clean diesel technology could work in America. The researchers were Dr. Dan Carter and his team at West Virginia University. They used portable emissions measurement systems, PEMS, attached to real vehicles on real roads. They tested a VW Jetta TDI, a VW Passat TDI, and a BMW X5 as a scientific control. If the BMW passed on the road, the methodology was sound. The BMW X5 was within legal limits. The VW Jetta showed NOx 15 to 35 times above the EPA limit, the Passat 5 to 20 times above. The researchers assumed methodology error and ran the tests again. Same results. They checked for mechanical faults. None. The emissions were consistently high, but only on the road. The ICCT and WVU published their findings in May 2014 and shared the data with the EPA and CARB, which has independent authority to enforce emission standards in California. EPA and CARB confronted Volkswagen with the WVU data. VW's response? The discrepancy resulted from technical differences between test conditions and real-world driving. They denied a defeat device. At regulatory insistence, VW issued a software update in late 2014. EPA and CARB tested the vehicles again. NOx emissions on the road were still far above legal limits. Volkswagen continued to deny through 2014 and into 2015. The company maintained no defeat device existed. The 2016 diesel models were approaching California's certification deadline. On September 3, 2015, CARB told Volkswagen it would not certify any 2016 diesel models in California unless VW provided a full technical explanation for the discrepancy. Without California certification, VW could not sell diesels across 15 U.S. states. The commercial pressure was existential. The denial had nowhere left to go. On September 18, 2015, Volkswagen admitted to EPA and CARB that the cars contained a defeat device. The EPA issued its notice of violation that same day. Within 48 hours, Volkswagen's stock fell approximately 30%. The company lost between 25 and 30 billion euros in market capitalization. On September 20th, CEO Martin Winterkorn issued a video apology. Sorry, taking responsibility, not aware of any personal wrongdoing. He resigned 2 days later. Internal documents later produced in U.S. proceedings contradicted the claim of senior ignorance. Prosecutors in both the U.S. and Germany concluded knowledge extended well above the engineering teams. The 11 million affected vehicles were not all VW branded. The VW Group owns Audi, Porsche, Seat, and Skoda. Affected models included the Audi A3, Touareg, and Porsche Cayenne. In the U.S., approximately 580,000 vehicles were affected. In Europe, closer to 8.5 million, reflecting diesel's far greater penetration in that market. The health consequences were not theoretical. A joint MIT and Harvard study estimated that excess NOx emissions from affected U.S. VW vehicles caused approximately 59 premature deaths. European researchers estimated the health impact was significantly larger. More diesel vehicles in denser urban areas over a longer period. The full environmental accounting has never been completed. In January 2017, Volkswagen AG pleaded guilty in U.S. federal court to 3 criminal felony counts: conspiracy to defraud the United States, wire fraud, and obstruction of justice. U.S. settlements reached approximately $20 billion. Consumer buybacks, dealer compensation, environmental remediation, and civil penalties to the EPA, FTC, and 44 state attorneys general. VW offered American owners a choice: full buyback at pre-scandal value, or a free repair plus cash compensation. Approximately 85% of U.S. owners chose the buyback. Europe moved differently. The EU's framework did not require individual consumer remedies as U.S. law did. Many European owners received software updates only, no buyback, no cash. In Germany, a federal court ruled in 2020 that VW acted deliberately, opening mass claims against the company that were settled in subsequent years. In 2021, German prosecutors fined Volkswagen 1.2 billion euros, the largest corporate fine in German history, for failing to supervise employees who developed the defeat device. Globally, VW's total financial exposure from Dieselgate exceeded $35 billion in settlements, fines, legal costs, and vehicle buybacks across all jurisdictions. Oliver Schmidt, VW's U.S. emissions compliance manager, was arrested at Miami Airport in January 2017. He was sentenced to 7 years in federal prison. James Liang, a VW engineer who helped develop the defeat device, pleaded guilty and cooperated with prosecutors. He was sentenced to 40 months in federal prison. Martin Winterkorn was indicted by a U.S. grand jury in 2018. He has not appeared in U.S. jurisdiction. His fraud trial in Germany began in 2021 and continued into 2024. Bosch settled U.S. civil claims for $327 million in 2017, without admitting criminal liability for its role in supplying the defeat device software. The Green Car of the Year awards won by VW TDI models were based on data the company knew was fraudulent. Jetta TDI won in 2009. Passat TDI in 2012. The defeat device worked because regulatory emissions testing everywhere is conducted on a test bench, an environment that cannot replicate every condition of actual road use. Volkswagen did not discover this gap. They engineered a product to exploit it. The test bench was the target the software was designed to pass. Following Dieselgate, regulators moved toward real-world testing, WLTP in Europe, and enhanced EPA protocols in the US to close the gap Volkswagen had exploited for a decade. Volkswagen survived. By 2023, the company generated over 290 billion euros in revenue, pivoting to electric vehicles using language that echoed the old clean diesel campaign. The people who deployed the defeat device, who received the 2007 Bosch warning, read the 2011 memo, approved continued production, are, for the most part, not in prison. 11 million customers bought a car they believed was clean. The software made a different choice every time they drove it. Who decided that was acceptable remains unanswered.